Hi everyone, my name is Semeena and I am co-founder of the Southern Welfare Society. We are an organisation based in Crawley, West Sussex, and we focus on empowering South Asians through sports and wellness initiatives. Some of our projects have included a walking program, yoga, 0 to 5K programs, volleyball sessions, and the list goes on. A lot of those projects were actually in collaboration and supported by Active Sussex and Sport England. And I'm here today to share a little bit about our journey and hopefully some key tips that you can take away. So, what does belonging actually feel like? So, I guess for me, it's being able to walk into a space, whether that's a run club or a fitness class, and feel as if I don't have to change who I am to fit in. So it's when I see someone else who looks like me, who perhaps understands my background, my culture, my lived experiences, and I'm met with encouragement instead of judgment. So for example, I have been a runner for as long as I can remember, probably the last decade. And when I first got into running in 2013, I remember going along to a race in London and looking around thinking, absolutely nobody here looks like me. I actually stopped running for 3 years and then started again in 2016, which is when I joined a local running club. Now, even then, I remember going along to, the local run club, but also Park Run, and thinking Crawley is actually a very diverse community, but the run club and the park runs were definitely not representative of that. And it's actually then when I started to kick off my 0 to 5K program specifically for Muslim women, because I knew what it felt like not having that safe place. And it's also like, whether I'm going for a run or trying something new, belonging means I'm not having to do it alone. So I observe the month of Ramadan, which means that often I am training during that month for London Marathon, which falls just after. And having people around me that understand how important it is for me to still, do my fast, but also equally as important for me to get my training runs in. But I guess the reality is that most women and girls, that sense of belonging doesn't always come easily. As women, we face so many barriers. So for me, for example, cultural expectations when I was growing up meant that it was harder for me to prioritize being active. And when I did try, when I got older, because of that, I just felt like certain spaces were not for me. And also safety is a big concern, especially when you're outdoors. So again, as a runner, I have to consider what time I'm running, what routes I'm running, making sure someone in my family has my live location so they know exactly where I always am. And also there's a lack of role models or leaders that we can kind of relate to make sport feel like it's a space where we're simply not just invited to, but actually as a South Asian Muslim women belong to. One of the things that I have noticed the most with participants who come along to our projects is that initially there is a lack of confidence. So a lot of women want to perhaps take part in physical activity. However, they feel that they're not sporty enough, or they don't belong if they don't look a certain way or move a certain way. And I guess that mindset has really limited their confidence in terms of like turning up to a project. And I think that as a society needs to be challenged. So for example, when I first started my walking program, these women had never done any physical activity. Of course, they probably walked. However, I started that project off and then slowly introduced different things. So they then went on to do like a 13-week weight management program with Crawley Wellbeing, which again was very new to them. They also went on to have swimming lessons, and they did that maybe for over a year. And then I slowly introduced yoga lessons, and it was all because I gave them that confidence in the walking program, and then they were confident enough to try different things. Also, all of those projects, so for example, walking program was me. It was someone who I am part of this community, so I know that is my strength. Yoga and swimming, again, female led. So swimming, we were ensuring that there were female lifeguards at the time. The instructors were both female. Yoga, again, in a safe place, led by a female. So they were able to have that safe and comfortable space within themselves. And this is where having more female-led programs makes such a big difference. So when you're having programs that are led by women, especially those from our own communities, it honestly changes everything. So a lot of my projects, all of my projects actually, are pretty much marketed by me, recruited by me, and I'm able to do that because I live in this community. I have done for the past 2 decades. My parents, have lived here for X amount of years. So when I am asking them, come along to these projects, they naturally feel safer with me because they can relate to me. It's someone that they already trust, and I'm relatable. And I guess when you see someone who's walked a similar path to yours, leading a session or cheering you on, something changes. And I see that across all of my projects, especially my walking program and my 0 to 5K. And I guess when they, like 0 to 5K, for example, my Couch to 5K girls, when they see me, for example, running marathons or ultra marathons or taking on a new challenge, it naturally makes them think, maybe I can do this too. So I think it definitely helps having role models or some sort of peer support from the same community. So what can you do as partners and organizations if you truly wanted to support women and girls from ethnically diverse communities to feel like they belong and get active outdoors? So a few things that I have learned along the years is firstly to listen. So I guess creating these projects are amazing and they're incredible. However, don't just create it for them, create it with them. Allow them to tell you what it is that they need. And that's what I've done with the majority of my projects. So for example, a group of women came to me and said they were keen to get into netball. And then I was networking, starting to have those conversations with organizations, and then made it happen. It also meant that I didn't have to be there for any of those sessions. I think I probably popped in a couple of times because it was something that they already wanted. So they, had a couple of volunteers who would lead, who would help the coach on the day, do the register. So they were really, really engaged and involved. And then I guess the next thing would be investing in diverse leadership. The more people see themselves reflected, the more welcome they are naturally going to feel. And also creating safe and inclusive spaces. So physical safety, yes, definitely important, but also so is emotional safety. So make sure people are feeling seen, represented, and respected and understood. Also, when you are delivering projects, try to build relationships that last. So by that, I mean not having kind of shorter, quick projects. Think about long-term engagement. So building that trust and having real impact on the community. So for example, delivering something for X amount of months and then thinking about with them as a group, how it can be sustained after your involvement in the project. So I'll give you an example of this. I have a volleyball program for men and they meet once a week, and the funding was through sport, Active Sussex, but via Sport England. And the funding, I want to say maybe it was for a couple of years. And the idea was that they would then start funding that project themselves. And that is exactly what happened. It still runs. They started to actually collect funds for that project quite early on, and then now are able to sustain it outside of SWS's support. And finally, my last tip would be is truly celebrate diversity. So by that, I mean, don't see it as a tick box exercise. Don't just include it because you have to. Really make it visible, make it proud, make it the heart of what you do. West Sussex is such a diverse county, and it's really acknowledging the little things. Like, for example, even if it's a simple happy Ramadan, happy Diwali, there are so many different backgrounds, faiths, cultures within West Sussex, and it's important to acknowledge them, especially with any partners or people in the community that we are working with. I hope those tips were helpful. I am so sorry that I couldn't be there in person today. However, if anyone has any questions or wanted any further advice, feel free to ask the Active Sussex team for my email. Feel free to drop me a message. Hopefully I can help you in any way. And yeah, here's to seeing more of us out there paving the way for future generations. Thank you so much. Bye.